Chapter 1. Leora. Buffered by grassland, the collision is strangely quiet. Dirt sprays as the small plane scrapes away the top layer of Montana soil, coming to an abrupt halt in the middle of our field. Black smoke billows as fire leaps to life on the front end of the mangled plane. Standing for a moment in shock, I leave my sister Anna, eating cold peach soup at the table, and run out the open back door. The corners of my mouth stretch as I scream for J-Bill, who is down the lane, working beneath the pavilion. I cannot see him, and I doubt he will be able to hear me. But over the din of the devouring flames, I do not hear anything. Not the whine of the saw blades that sometimes soothes my sister's tantrums. Not the fierce roar as J-Bill and his crew power wash bark from the once standing dead trees that will soon become the walls of another log house. On the back porch, I grab a piece of firewood left over from winter and leap down the steps. I cross through the gate and wade into the meadow and see that around the plain, a diameter of grass is seared by the heat of the fire. I scream for J-Bill again, and then I scream for my younger brother Seth, who is working down at field to table at the end of the lane. I run up to the plane and stare into the cockpit. The windshield is shattered. The pilot is slumped over the control panel. Blood trails down half his face like a port wine stain. For a moment I think he is already dead. Then I see his fingers twitch near the throttle. "Can you hear me?" I yell. The man groans and tries to look at me without turning his head. I use the butt of the log to hit the door handle because the handle itself is too far off the ground for me to reach. When it won't budge, I try to break the side window, thinking it'd be better for the pilot to be cut by the glass than burned to death. But the glass is too thick, and the window, same as the handle, is too far off the ground for me to put any leverage behind my swing. "You have to help! I don't know how to get you out!" The pilot says nothing. His deep-set eyes close as he loses consciousness, his jaw slackening beneath a tangled beard. I hear a sound over the crackling flames and turn to see J-Bill and his logging crew charging down the lane. Some of the men are still wearing hard hats or protective goggles, and the sawdust from their work sifts from their bodies like reddish sand. Their uniform steel-toe boots stamp the meadow as they surge toward us, about 10 of them, and create a circle around the wreckage. J-Bill is carrying a crowbar, his brother Malachi carries a shovel, Christian a fire extinguisher, and the Englishers, Sean, a bolt cutter. They did not need me to scream for help because of course they would have seen the plane crash on their own. The entire community must have seen it. I keep holding my worthless piece of firewood to my chest and watch the crew extinguish the fire and pry open the cockpit door. Then J-Bill tries to lift the pilot out by his arms. The man falls toward him, but his feet remain lodged under the crumpled floorboard. J-Bill uses the crowbar to work the pilot's feet free. Christian tugs on the pilot's shoulders, and he slides out into the waiting logger's arms. The plane's metal ticks, and acrid smoke from the charred engine burns my throat and eyes. I back up from the plane in case it catches on fire again. J-Bill turns to me.
"We take him to your house?"
"Yeah." I gouge the wood with my nails. "Of course." J-Bill Snyder has been the foreman of the logging crew since his father's sudden passing last year, when literally overnight J-Bill became the wealthiest man in the community. At 21, he is only 2 years older than I, but next to his uncle, the bishop, he is also the most revered. Therefore, when J-Bill calls out commands, the men respond in unity. They move across the meadow as one, the pilot's broken body borne by their work-hardened arms. Running in front of them, I open the gate and prop it with an overturned wheelbarrow. I dart up the steps into the house, and Anna looks up from her bowl. "We need the table," I say in Pennsylvania Dutch. "You'll have to move." My 16-year-old sister continues watching me with the eyes of a child, her smile serene despite the bedlam outside. "I mean it," I continue, because sometimes she understands more than she lets on. I take her bowl of soup over to the countertop. Anna frowns and stands to retrieve it, as I expected she would. I drag the chairs away from the table and remove the tablecloth and quart jar full of weeds Anna picked and arranged like flowers. Knowing the pilot's appearance will upset my sensitive sister, and the small crowd in our home will upset her even more, I carry the soup bowl, cloth napkin, and spoon into the back bedroom we share. "Read to you?" Anna asks, glancing up at me with an impish smile. What she really wants is for me to read the book to her. Later, I promise. I tug my sister's dress down over her legs and kiss the white center part of her twin braids. Closing our bedroom door, I hurry down the hall and see J-Bill is supporting the pilot's head and shoulders and Malachi the legs, as together they maneuver his body onto the table. His clothes are singed, and blood from his head wound stains the grooves of the beautiful pine table that, like most of the furniture in this house, was crafted by my father's skillful hands. "You have scissors?" J-Bill asks. I withdraw a pair from the sewing drawer and pass it to him. Touching my hand, he meets my eyes. "Sure you want to be here for this?" At my affirming nod, he turns and cuts off the pilot's Englischers clothes by starting at the breastbone and working his way down. His thick, calloused fingers are so confident and swift, it seems he's been performing this action all his life. My face grows warm as the t-shirt falls away, exposing the pilot's chest. Besides my younger brother, I have never seen a shirtless man, as such immodesty is prohibited in the community. The pilot is smaller-boned than J-Bill, who, along with his brothers, I once watched lever a main barn beam from horizontal to vertical without breaking a sweat. But the pilot is still muscular and lean. A thick silver band hangs from a chain around his neck, engraved with the words Semper Fi. A cross, ends elongated like spears, is tattooed from the pilot's left clavicle down to his pectoral. Biology terms I recall from the science book I borrowed from the Liberty Public Library, back when I had time to spend studying, simply to absorb knowledge, and not to prepare for the tedious classes I did not want to teach. I turn and see that J-Bill is extracting a pistol from the holster on the belt threaded through the pilot's jeans. I pivot from the sight and the fear it evokes, and wrap my arms around my waist. "Has somebody tried calling 911? Sean, the Englishers, says,
"Tried 10 times. My cell wouldn't work."
I dare a glance over my shoulder, being careful not to look at the table where the pilot lies. "Did you try the phone in the shop?" Malachi says,
"We tried that before we came here to help. It didn't work either. Electricity's all messed up. Our equipment shut down too."
There's the clunk of soft-soled shoes dropping to the hardwood floor.
"That doesn't look good," J-Bill says.
Willing myself to maintain a clinical eye, I turn yet again and walk to the end of the table. The ball of the pilot's right ankle is distended. I cradle the pilot's foot in my hand and gently rotate it to see if the ankle is broken or just strained from the men wrenching him from the plane. The pilot's eyes fly open, and he yells, the force of it whiplashing throughout his body. The cords of his neck stand out as he bites down. Concerned that, in his panicked state, he is going to hurt himself, I do not let go, but keep the ankle braced between my hands. "It's all right," I soothe. "You're safe." The pilot's eyes meet mine. They are the color of Flathead Lake in summer, the clarity only slightly muddied by the haze of his pain. Then he closes them again, and the foot in my hand relaxes. I hear the back door open. My 13-year-old brother Seth strides across the kitchen. He takes off his straw hat and wipes the sweat from his hairline with his forearm. Leaning over the table, he peers down at the pilot's head wound. "Was he trying to land?" Seth turns toward J-Bill. "Did you see anything?"
"No, just the crash."
I look down at the pilot's right foot, feel the knot of his stockinged heel cupped in my palm, and for some unknown reason, it brings me comfort. "We need to get him to the hospital," I say. "We have no idea what injuries he has." "I don't know how we can get him to the hospital." Seth straightens and looks at me. "The electricity at field to table shut down, and none of the customers' cars will start. And with him being in this shape, it's too far to take him to Liberty by buggy." The logging crew stop speaking among themselves. The silence draws attention to the dripping faucet and rhythmic snoring of gross-mummy Eunice, napping in the living room. I ask Seth, why won't the cars start? "No clue. The Englischers are trying to figure out how to get home, but they can't get a hold of anyone because their cell phones won't work. Bishop Lowell and the deacons are asking everyone to meet at the schoolhouse so we can come up with a plan." I glance down at the table, where the bleeding stranger lies. The pilot's in no condition to be moved, because we don't know what is broken, but neither can he just stay here in our house unsupervised. "You all go ahead," I say. "Take Anna. I'll stay here with him and Grossmommy." I look over and see that J-Bill's eyes are trained on the gun, glinting on the table. The smooth, polished weapon appears so out of place, almost vulgar among our rustic handcrafted things. "And take that with you?"
"You're sure?"
J-Bill asks me again, motioning toward the pilot, and I cannot tell if he's asking if I'm sure that I want to remain behind, or if I'm sure that I want him to take the gun. "I'll be fine," I say. "Just leave me here." The strident tone of my request rings in the uneasy quiet. Without a word, J-Bill turns and leaves through the back door.